The Miami Dolphins did not practice at Hard Rock Stadium as originally scheduled today, but they did practice. And I was there. Here's what I saw here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Tip of the cap to our everydayers, because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting the way that we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking all customers up with a boost or bonus daily. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's address the elephant in the room. Tyreek Hill had his contract redone. We're not doing it on the show because I just got done getting back to the hotel, getting all my practice notes aligned for me to be able to talk about it on the show. Pulled the clip from the Dolphins live stream of the Mike McDaniel presser for the question I asked Mike about the tight end room today. I got airdropped my video from the Tua Tagovailoa press conference with a question that I asked Tua that I definitely wanted to make sure that I touched on. And we got to do the practice recap first. Okay. There's going to be another show this evening before the end of the day that talks about the Tyreek Hill contract extension. I want to acknowledge it. It sounds like a cash redistribution move for the Dolphins. More on that later today. Hit subscribe. You can follow along on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. But the team did have practice. It was not a public practice. It was supposed to be a public practice. And there's this tropical storm-ish thing coming up through the Gulf. And due to the uncertainty and unpredictability of the weather, the team ultimately decided to have a practice at the facility. And in case it was going to be indoors, it was closed to the public, as Credential Media did have an opportunity to be there, sit on the Mike McDaniel presser, and so on and so forth. Some good notes. They ended today's practice with a 2-minute offense situation. I'm not going to get into the plays, but I will outline the sequence of events. Minute 45, 1st and 10, 2 timeouts, minus 35, down 4 points. So Dolphins had a few opportunities in that vein last year. And I thought it was a really well-executed 2-minute offense situation for the Dolphins. There was good sideline awareness. Jonnu Smith pressing for the sideline and getting out of bounds to save a timeout. There was judicious decision-making once the field started to get a little bit more compressed. They started to get down into the red zone. There was taking completions as they were made available as far as feeling and finding free access in space. All in all, very good. Devon Achane finished the drive with a reception for a touchdown that was scored within the final 20 seconds of the live game situation. So you saw a lot of good in that period for the first team offense, or those you would presume to be on the first team offense. But if I think about practice performers as a whole, it kind of took a little while to get into the flow of things in this practice as far as there was install and special teams and walkthroughs. But the number one player, the player whose name I had written down the most in my notes from today's practice is not a player that has gotten a lot of run through the first 2 weeks of camp. And it's a name that I think people should be excited to hear. And it's Channing Tindall. Had himself, I thought, a really nice day of practice. He was around the football a lot, made plays in coverage, made plays in pressure. And I talked with Joe Barry on yesterday, and Channing Tindall's name came up, and he talked about kind of the DNA of that linebacker room. And for a young player like Channing Tindall, Joe Barry said, he's still a really young player. And I know for Dolphins fans, he was the top draft choice outside the top 100, but still the top draft choice for that draft class that was very light from 2022. And as a result, he's become kind of the face of the draft class, and Dolphins fans have been waiting to hear good feedback on Channing Tindall. And I thought today was the best practice he's had since I've been down here, and I've been down here since the day they reported camp. And it was nice to see the athleticism that is so apparent when you see him show up and play a little faster and get to the football and be more instinctive. I thought he had a really nice day. David Long was somebody else who I thought had a nice day. He had a run fit alongside Jalen Ramsey where those guys came down hard. And he popped Kendall Lamb. David Long did it really good. And that was one of the wow reps of practice for the Dolphins. I thought the offensive line had some nice moments running the football as well, whether it was Austin Jackson getting good push. I thought Patrick Paul had a nice bounce back day. I thought Robert Jones had another strong day at one of the guard spots. He actually KO'd Quentin Bell on a rep. Kendall Lamb was engaged in hand fighting with Quentin Bell. And it was one of those Rob Hunt, like, rack of ribs specials where Rob always used to kind of come over when guys were tied up with the tackle and clean it up and KO a guy. He sent Quentin Bell head over heels and knocked him onto the ground. A really physical rep from Rob Jones. So seeing him start to string together some momentum and not just be like, hey, this was the best day we had from a guard, but like, hey, this is a pretty consistent stretch of play for you. Now, the defense had its wins. This was another one of those ebb and flow type of practices. You saw in one red zone period, Calais Campbell got turned loose. Looked like they forced the offensive tackle to kind of have a big duel, which means he's responsible for taking the most dangerous of two guys. And if you can't block them both and they both come, somebody's going to be free. And you have to turn the right guy loose and turn him loose to either the back in the backfield or the quarterback's going to be hot. And he turned the inside guy loose. And that was Calais Campbell, who came running through for what would have been a would-be sack in a red zone period. So there was give and take on both sides. I thought Zeke Vandenberg had another nice day, a couple really nice run fits as well. Tua had a good day. I thought the efficiency of all the quarterbacks today was pretty strong. It wasn't a wow period. There weren't a bunch of vertical shots and fireworks all up and down the field. But I thought it was an efficient day for the quarterbacks. And there's been some ugly days as far as high stress periods for the defense. And then there's been on the other side, the offense comes back and really dictates terms, and their speed and spacing gets to really pop. This was one of those days that had a little bit of both. I will say my one quarterback note, Skylar Thompson thus far has been the second best quarterback in practices, in my opinion. And he had a pretty solid day. I actually thought Mike threw the ball as well as he's thrown it all camp today. But Skylar, just the biggest difference and deviation between Skylar and Tua's physical skill sets as players. Because Tua, he does look more fluid. He does look quicker. I think this is an area, and we've talked about it. And going back to what I asked Darrell Bevel about the impact in the run game as the quarterback, is an unaccounted for player, even if you're not going to call plays for him to run the ball, but how that can influence your blocking schemes. There's more ways than one in which I think Tua this season can give you a little bit more. But the most glaring deficiency that Skylar has from a physical skill set perspective versus Tua, I think, is the quick twitch stuff. There were a couple of catch and release. I'm hot. I got to throw the ball under pressure, and I have to have a really quick release, or else I'm going to take a hit, or what would have been a hit, if not in a practice setting. And those plays for Skylar were his worst reps today. And I do think when you cross-reference what Skylar is as a player based on his body of work in 2022, what you've seen as far as a growth perspective from that to what he is this year in training camp, I think that's the biggest differentiation of the skill sets physically. Now, there's a whole mental piece of the game that I do think Tua is quite a far bit in front of Skylar with as far as how he sees the field, how he sees the game. But just the physical component of Tua with the elite quick release, the accuracy, even in those instances where he has to catch and shoot the ball right away, Skylar just does not have that club in his back, I think. So that was one of the observations today as far as Skylar with the reps that he got and the two of the reps that they got and where things overlapped. I think Tua and the uniqueness in which how he sees and processes the game is the void that separates him from being a starting caliber and a high caliber starting quarterback in the NFL versus Skylar, somebody who doesn't see and feel and process it with kind of the anticipation and the initial wide vision in which I think Tua sees the game with. But good practice for Skylar. Good practice for all the quarterbacks. And I asked Tua a question at the end of practice that we're going to get into, but I wanted to get into the Mike McDaniel missing link. And we've heard a lot about it. We've heard it on television broadcasts, all that kind of stuff. That's coming your way next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. Passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships, but it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge dubs. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guarantee Fit available only to U.S. customers. So everybody knows, coming from San Francisco with George Kittle, the tight end position in this Shanahan scheme and Mike McDaniel scheme, a little bit of a different version of it, but they had a big investment in Mike Gesicki with the franchise tag, and that didn't work out. And then this past year, it was more of an afterthought position where those guys did a bunch of dirty work. And then they add Jonnu Smith, and they add Jody Fortson, and they have a second-year player in Julian Hill. They were invested in a fullback. Kind of the numbers there is going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I certainly have my opinions, but we're going to let some more camp play out before we get into all that kind of stuff. But what is very apparent is the smorgasbord of potential skill sets that exist in this tight end room, because everybody kind of has a different avenue. And we got into that a little bit yesterday with Julian Hill on the show, and what Julian Hill had to give his perspective of finding the overlap in everybody's skill sets and what he can take from all of those guys. I want to hear from Mike McDaniel. And the way I phrased the question was, you have this collection of guys that have their own unique individual abilities, plus Alec Ingold, and the fullback or a second tight end or a third receiver, whatever the last eligible is, the fifth eligible in this offense, assuming it's a back, a tight end, two wide receivers. What's the fifth guy? Is it a fullback? Is it a second tight end? Is it a third wide receiver? That player is called the adjuster in this offense, and it's typically notated in the playbook with the letter F. And Mike McDaniel references the F in his answer. But I asked him, what does this diversification of the tight end room, plus Alec Ingold, allow for you to do as a game planner and a play caller this season? Here's what Mike McDaniel had to say. Mike, your tight end room feels like a bit of a melting pot of individual skill sets on top of a really dynamic fullback player in Alec. What kind of flexibility can that give you as both a game planner and a play caller this season?
That's what you're looking for in those positions, because they're inherent in those roles are flexibility. You're part of the blocking core. You're part of the receiving route tree. When I tell you the most offensively, the most challenging position each and every week to learn the plan of attack is in that F position, which is both tight ends and fullbacks. And the versatility of that room, turn the page, there's the versatility of your offense. And I think that role is ever expanding based upon what the defense presents. I think that room collectively has really attacked the offseason from both a run game and a pass game standpoint. And when you do that, you make everyone better because you add another eligible in the pass game, and you add another offensive lineman in the run game all at the same time.
So I thought what was interesting was as we perceive this Dolphins offense and we look at the personnel moves and we think about the things that we all uniquely have on our wish list for what the offense is going to look like and be different with this year. Mike explicitly alluded to the versatility of that room of players will inherently and directly impact the diversity of your offense as a whole. So to know this is it's not just coach speak when the broadcast team says they talk to Mike McDaniel and we ask, hey, where's the tight end? And he says, well, that's the next step. That's the next evolution. This is the latest embodiment of it. And being here at camp to see what it looks like, there's more layers to fold in. I'll say this. The Dolphins offense has been amongst the bottom personnel groupings of 12 personnel as far as how frequently they run one running back and two tight ends. The last 2 years, they've been amongst the bottoms of the league, and that includes with Mike Gesicki. They really didn't run a lot of 12. Now, there was some ambiguity as far as, is Mike a wide receiver or is he a tight end? Just like there's some ambiguity with Alec Ingold. Is he a fullback or is he a tight end? Because he can line up in an H-back position outside of a tight end. He can line up off the ball in what an off-ball Y or traditional tight end would be. He can line up in the backfield. He can line up at two-back in shotgun or in pistol and be next to Tua in pass protection reps. That's the value of the fullback, right? It's all the different spots that he can line up. And for Miami, it's the variety of the presentation Alec Ingold helps with, even if he's classified as a fullback and you just automatically roll it into 21 personnel where it's two backs on the field and one of them's a fullback. He can count as a tight end and you can go into 12 personnel looks with 21 personnel. But as far as the variety of the skill sets and what they're going to do differently and what that then inherently in turn, Jonnu Smith can potentially overlap with Alec Ingold's positional and alignment variety while simultaneously lining up in the slot. And could Alec Ingold line up in the slot? Yeah. Is he going to win any reps one-on-one against guys that are coverage guys and safeties? Probably not. Jonnu Smith can. And Julian Hill, his continued development has been one of the bigger storylines for me personally coming into camp because I had questions. Obviously, Durham Smythe's a well-established NFL player. Jonnu Smith, you know what he is, and there's some overlap with this system going back to when he was in Tennessee back in like 2020. Julian Hill, it was like, okay, can Jody Fortson beat him out? Is Jonnu Smith's development and emergence just automatically going to push him to the fringe? I don't think it is. Because I think Julian Hill's the guy that's got the best opportunity based on his skill set to be everything in one. And this, what does he look like in 2025 and 2026? I'm kind of invested in finding out based on what I've seen from growth already from last year to what he is this year. So it's really interesting to hear Mike get into a little bit of the diversity of the offense at its core is defined by your adjuster players. And it is a much more robust menu of players to put in spots this year than it was last year, for sure. Now, Also asked Tua Tagovailoa about the process of feeling out new pass catchers. He was asked, you know what? We're going to get into it after the break. Make sure you stick with us. We all love sports. Makes this time of year a little bit more difficult because we don't have the sportsing the way that we want them to. No hockey, no basketball, kind of football, but not really. We're not really playing games yet. Dead heat of summer for baseball. It's a long year. Can get a little tedious. Can get a little tiresome. You get hungry for sports. But FanDuel's got you covered. All you have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking all customers up with a boost or bonus daily. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. The Tua's presser after practice. Mike was before practice. And Tua was asked about the guys feeling out how to catch the ball from him, being a left-handed quarterback, the spin on the ball, how that's different. And he gave some insight into the process for those guys and get on the jugs machine with the ball spinning the other way. And you really don't think it's a big deal until the first time you get up and you feel it and you catch it and the ball, it's different. So I piggybacked off of that, and I wanted to hear from Tua. Guys have to adjust to a left-handed quarterback, sure, but every quarterback, regardless of whether you're left-handed or right-handed, when you get new guys in, particularly in training camp, there's a feeling out process of what is this player like as a piece within what we're doing? How well does he catch the ball if he's got to go low and dig one out? How big is his catch radius if I put up a 50-50 ball and he's got to try and high point the football? How much can he extend away from his frame? What's the strike zone of which a ball in that general vicinity, is he going to be a reliable target? So I asked him that. I asked him, for you, feeling out the guys, not the guys feeling you out, how have you gone about kind of cultivating that familiarity in training camp in the preseason to this point? And here's what Tua had to say. You talked about the guys getting used to catching the ball from you, but what has that process been like for you with new guys and learning where they like the ball and how big their catch radius is? How have you kind of attacked this preseason?
Yeah. Well, they're receivers. In my opinion, I'm not thinking where you like to catch the ball. I'm just thinking, where I should be placing the ball depending on what the play entails for me to do. I would say for the most part, it's seeing what their catch radius is, what routes they run, that they like, and what routes that we like that they run. And then also, where we can put them and where their matchups are and sort of things like that. So that's sort of what I look at.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
So I thought it was interesting. Maybe where they like the ball, I thought he took more literal than maybe the attention of like how comfortable they are catching the ball in certain spots, but it rolls into catch radius. And I actually did think his answer there was kind of interesting on like, if you're a receiver, I'm going to put it where it has to be for you to execute. And then that's where you feel out how familiar a guy is with a large catch radius. And then talking about how the individual pieces, the feeling out process of what routes on the tree make the most sense to integrate within what our core principles are as an offense. So it was good insight for sure to kind of hear that just as much of this aside of where can I put the ball and trust that you're going to catch it is what do you do that intersects with not just our offense, but how I throw it. And that trust and cultivation, I mean, you think about a rookie receiver like Malik Washington, and obviously Odell Beckham hasn't been out there yet, but that's going to be a piece of the puzzle. And Jonnu Smith, and an expanded role in the passing game for Devon Achane is like the new opportunities and new roles. And they've been really close a lot, but it hasn't quite clicked into place yet for a lot of the opportunities and new ways in which you're expecting Devon Achane's going to get some opportunities this year, whether that's feeling out where zone leverage is and Tua throws it away from a zone defender and Achane doesn't drift the way that he expects to or anything like that. So that's kind of the over the next month, I think the smoothing out process for Miami and their passing game is going to be predicated on a lot of that, as far as now taking guys beyond the install of the principle and the concept and putting them at the right place within the concept, and then getting him and his players to see things the same way with whatever they have that's new, in addition to guys that maybe have expanded roles. So that's as we wrap the next block of 3 practices, and that's it. You know, they're off tomorrow, and then they're on Monday, and then the Falcons are in on Tuesday and Wednesday for 2 joint practices. That's the next step. And hearing Tua kind of share where they're at and what they're looking for right now to go about maximizing that certainly helps paint the picture of where our expectations can be as this preseason and training camp continues. That's going to do it for us here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. As always, you can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Make it a great rest of your day. I am coming back with another show talking about Tyreek and his contract extension. Again, you can find it on YouTube, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Go Dolphins. I'm out of here.